Whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mrs. Roberts.
Good morning.
Yesterday, you told us a little bit about when you went into John's home at Meadows to look for him.
Yes.
And I recall you said that you did not see him there.
Correct.
At some point you left?
Correct.
When you went into Meadows, who did you go into Meadows with?
Karen and Jen McCabe.
Have you ever seen any video from a ring camera depicting you and the defendant and Miss McCabe going into the home?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Actually, I've moved to introduce a ring video. It has certification, and then a smaller clip of that ring video if there's no objection.
Did you say if there's no objection or there is no?
If there's no objection. There's no objection. May I introduce Your Honor?
Sure.
Exhibits 12A and 12B.
Thank you. And one final. No, thank you.
12C.
It's a clip. 12C would be just fine. Thank you. Your Honor, if I may note, 12A is the ring video from 12 Meadows, 12B is the certification from Ring, and 12C is a clip of a piece, a portion of 12A.
That's accurate, yes, thank you.
Thank you. With the court's permission, I'd like to play 12C for the jury.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, you've seen that video before?
Yes, I have.
Is that you and the defendant and Ms. McCabe going into Meadows?
Yes, it is.
When you came out of Meadows, did you have a chance again to look at the defendant's tail light on her Lexus?
Yes, when we left the house, she pointed it out to me.
Did you stop and get a closer look?
Yes, I did.
I want you to describe to the jury your best memory of what it looked like.
Karen pointed out and said, look, my taillight. And she said, do you think I hit him? And I said, no, I don't think you hit him. What are you talking about? Let's just go find him. But the taillight itself, the piece was missing. And as you got closer, there's a metal sort of square, and one of the pieces was sort of sticking out. And I only remember it because I thought if someone walks by that, they're going to catch their jacket on it.
How long of a time did you have to actually look at the taillight?
Under a minute.
How close were you to the taillight when you looked at it?
I was in front of it. I could see.
And when you talked about the taillight, you said a piece was missing. Is this the left side or the right side of the Lexus that you saw the piece of the taillight missing?
It was the right side, so it was the passenger taillight.
May I approach?
Yes.
Should I remain, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. May I recognize what is in that photo?
That is Karen's SUV.
Is it similar or a fair and accurate depiction of how you saw the vehicle that morning?
Without the snow, I can't be positive, but this square piece was missing, as is in this picture.
The photograph you look at is not the car in the snow in the driveway the day you saw it.
Correct.
Putting that aside, is that a fair and accurate depiction of the damage that you saw to the right rear taillight of Miss Reed's car that morning?
Yes.
I move to introduce this as an exhibit, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
Exhibit 13.
Thank you. With the court's permission, I'd like to publish Exhibit 13.
Sure.
Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you to take a look at the photo that you just described. Do you see the white area in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that where the taillight had missing part?
Yes.
And where was the metal in relation to that white part that you see?
If you look at the white part, it's the upper left. It's sort of like a rectangle, but it's vertical, sort of.
And that's the metal part that you were concerned about?
Yes, one of the side. It's almost like an encasement, but the right side, I think it was the right side, was sticking out a little bit, like out from the car toward me.
Did you express any concern about the metal sticking out?
Yes, because I thought at that height it could clip someone's coat or something if they were walking by.
You mentioned the defendant asked you if you thought she hit somebody.
Correct.
How many times did she ask you that?
She asked me that in the driveway. How many times? She said, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? And my answer was, no, I don't think you hit him. I'm sure you hit something because your taillight's broken, but I don't think you hit him. Why would I think that?
Did you have any reason to think at that point that she hit anybody?
No.
Did she ever repeat that phrase or question in the same or similar manner again that night?
She did at the scene where we found John.
Before or after you found John?
After we found John.
Okay. So we'll get to that then. Could we please take that picture down, Ms. Gilman? How far of a ride is it from Meadows to Fairview?
I don't know, maybe 8 minutes.
So when you left John's house at Meadows and you traveled to Fairview, you said you were driving.
Yes.
Was there any comments or conversation from the defendant on that ride?
There was talk of Bella's mom, who lived near Jen's sister. There was talk, and I said, where is Fairview? And Jen said, it's off of Chapman, so it was near Spring Lane. And I knew of somebody previously that John had dated on Spring Lane, so I brought it up thinking, could he have gone there if he was walking home? I don't know. I didn't know where he was or why he was missing.
Describe the mood in the car.
Well, it was scary driving, and Karen was, frantic, and she was yelling. I don't even remember at this point what she was yelling, but she was yelling. She had an elevated voice. She would be in between us while I was driving, and she would sit back in the back seat and be in between us.
Did you have any words with Miss Reed?
I told her to shut up several times because I was trying to drive and I couldn't concentrate. I told her to sit back and buckle up because it was bad driving. I didn't want to get into an accident and her not have a seatbelt on.
How often was the yelling on the way to Fairview?
Oh, several times. It was like you couldn't control her. And I was trying to drive in a blizzard.
You went down Spring Road before you get to Fairview?
No, Spring Lane is before Fairview off of Chapman.
And did anything remarkable happen on Spring Lane?
I'm sorry?
Anything remarkable happen on Spring Lane?
No.
More of the same?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned yesterday that when you got to Fairview, the defendant began kicking your door.
Yes.
When you looked out, you didn't see anything.
I did not.
And at some point, you ran over to where Miss Reed was.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us what your first observations are when you get close to the defendant.
Well, it was a shape of a body, like the length of a body, shape of a body. She ran over, and I said, oh, my God. I jumped out of the car. I ran over, and she was lifting up his shirt to try and warm him, I guess. So I went over to his head, and I began to dig his head out of the snow.
Can you take us back and describe for us what you're seeing?
His body was completely covered, but his head was completely covered. So I started to dig around his face and his eyes, and his left eye was fine, but his right eye looked like it was huge, like he had something happen to it. And after that, I told Karen to get off him. We were going to start CPR. I had been certified at work through the American Red Cross, so I knew chest compressions were more important. So I started to do chest compressions, and I yelled to Jen and told her to call 911. Karen was trying to do mouth-to-mouth. I don't know if she knew what she was doing, but I knew chest compressions were more important, so I concentrated on that. I yelled for Jen. I carry blankets. I have 2 kids, so I carry blankets in the car, so I yelled to Jen to get the blankets. I don't know what I thought I was doing with blankets, but I wrapped them around his head, just thinking we're trying to warm him up. He was covered in snow.
When you first ran over, you mentioned that his head was covered in snow. Was his head fully covered in snow?
Yes.
When you looked down, could you see who it was at first?
At first? No. I had to dig him out.
When is it that you realized that this was your friend John?
When I cleared the snow off his face.
Did you feel his skin?
Did I feel what?
His skin.
Yes.
Okay. And could you tell us how it felt?
It was cold. Like he had been there in the elements for a while.
You mentioned that his head was covered with snow before you brushed off the snow. Was other parts of his body still covered in snow?
Yes.
Can you share with us what you saw?
His legs were covered. His arms were by his side. He was on his back. Karen had lifted up his shirt, so now his shirt was down, but I was doing chest compressions so you could see his clothing. He had blood coming out of his nose and his mouth. And when I put the baby blankets under the back of him, there was blood on the blanket, so I think he had a cut on the back of his head.
Was the blood from his nose and mouth frozen or running?
I don't think it was running. It was not gushing.
You said that you brushed off the snow from John's face.
Yes.
Did you brush it off from both sides?
Yes.
Did you brush it off to the extent that you uncovered his entire face and head?
Yes.
So, did you have gloves on?
No.
Bare hands?
Yes.
And that's how you felt the temperature of his skin?
Yes.
When you brushed off both sides of his face, did you ever feel any pieces of glass sticking out of his face?
No.
Did you ever see any pieces of glass sticking out of his face?
I did not.
How long did you give chest compressions for to Mr. O'Keefe?
Oh, I can't be sure. I would say 4 minutes, 5 minutes while we were waiting for the EMTs. I had Jen take over at one point. And then the EMTs came. So however long it took for them to get to us, 6 minutes.
When you were trying to save your friend John, did the defendant say anything?
She was just running around screaming, Kerry, Kerry, Jen, Kerry, Jen.
Was anything said at that point about her taillight?
About what?
Her taillight.
No, when the EMTs were around and they were working on the body, she was running around and saying, did I hit him? Did I hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead?
When you were waiting for the police and EMTs, just briefly, what was the temperature like and the visibility like?
The temperature was freezing because I remember at one point I couldn't feel my knees, which is why I had Jen take over. And the wind was still whipping and the snow was still coming down.
At some point, did help arrive?
Yes, they did.
And when help arrived, what did you do?
I stood back and watched them work on him.
Did you see first responders trying to give first aid to Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
How long were you outside for that morning?
At that point?
Well, the entire morning.
Oh, maybe a half hour.
When the first responders were trying to save John, what else were you doing?
I was calling my husband. I called my mother. When they put him in the back of the ambulance, I then made a call to Mrs. O'Keefe. I think I called Mr. O'Keefe first, but he didn't answer. So I called Mrs. O'Keefe and told her John had been in an accident. And she screamed, I can't do this again.
What did you do after that phone call?
The police put Jen and Karen in the back of a cruiser, and I was looking in the ambulance to see what was going on with my friend. So I was standing outside of the cruiser. They were inside. I was standing outside just watching. And Karen was saying, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? And I said, no, they're working on him. I can see tubes moving. I can see them moving. Something, if he was dead, they wouldn't be working on him. She grabbed the front of my shirt and said, are they working on him? And I said, yes, they're working on him. At this point, I think I was in shock. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't think he was dead. I thought they could save him. I knew he was in the EMT, in the ambulance with the EMTs, and I was just hopeful that they were going to be able to do more than I could.
You said that at one point, Ms. McCabe and the defendant were in a car, and then you mentioned at some point the defendant grabbed you. Did she grab you when she was in the car or out of the car?
She was in the car. I was outside of the car.
At some point, did the defendant, Ms. McCabe, get out of the car?
Yes.
Did you go over to the ambulance before it left?
Did I go over to the ambulance?
Before it left?
No.
Did you watch?
Yes.
At some point, did you see the defendant get out of the car, the police cruiser?
No, I didn't see them get out, but they were out at one point.
They were what?
They were out of the vehicle, but I didn't watch them get out. I was watching the ambulance.
At some point, you saw them out?
Yes.
And did they watch, or were they near you when you were watching the ambulance?
Did what?
Were they near you when you were watching the ambulance?
I don't know.
No.
I wasn't concentrating on either one of them. I was concentrating on my friend in the ambulance.
When you were trying to save Mr. O'Keefe, did you ever see any signs of life?
I did not. And I checked his pulse. No, I did not.
After the ambulance took John to the hospital, tell us what you do next.
I left. I told Mrs. O'Keefe, I said, I'm going to come get you. She said, well, I'm going to have Braintree Police take me to the hospital, which was in Brockton. And I said, they're not going to take you to Brockton. I will come get you because neither of their cars had four-wheel drive. So I asked if I could leave, and they said, give me your number and we'll follow up with you. And I took Karen with me. We drove down the street. At some point, she was on the phone with Erin O'Keefe, John's sister-in-law, and Karen was saying, I think he's dead. I think he's dead. I grabbed the phone and I said, I don't think he's dead. He's in an ambulance. He's been in an accident. At this point, I didn't know what was going to happen. At some point in the car, as we're driving, she was on the phone with her mother. And I think when we were driving, we got all the way to the elementary school. And Karen said to me, if anything happens to John, I'm going to kill myself. You're going to have to take care of the kids. And I said, nobody's dying. Nobody's killing themselves. Let's not think about that. And then one of the officers called me and said, do you have Karen Reed with you? And I said, yes. And he said, could you please turn around and bring her back? Her parents are saying that she's suicidal, so we're going to take her to the hospital and section her. I said, okay. I didn't get far, so I turned around, went back. At some point, she was on the phone with her mother, and I got on the phone with her mother and said, I'm going to be heading to the hospital. Let me give you my phone number. It's the same hospital John's at. I'm assuming they're going to the same. That's where Canton takes everybody. And her mother said, please make sure that they don't let her have her bag. There are things in her bag, medicine I don't want her to have. So I said, okay, I will. So we got back to the house, and she got in the ambulance, and one of the EMTs asked me for her phone, so I handed that over, and I said, the mother wants to make sure that she does not have her purse because there's medication in there that they don't want her to have.
Did you see the defendant leave with medical personnel?
Yes, I did.
Before we move forward, I want to step back for just a moment. Did you see when the medical personnel, the first responders, lifted John from the ground and then put him on a bed?
Yes.
Shortly after they moved John from the ground and brought him to the bed to bring him to the ambulance, did you go back to where John lay when you first saw him?
Yes, I did.
Why did you go back to the spot where John was lying when you first saw him?
When they lifted him up, there was grass underneath him, and I could see his phone. So I went over and picked up the phone and the two baby blankets that were left on the ground.
So let me ask you, when you went back to where John was lying on the ground, you said you saw grass. There was not snow under him?
No, there was not.
Was there many inches of snow around that area?
Yes.
But none where he was lying under him? You said you picked up a couple of items?
Yes.
Could you repeat that again, what you picked up?
I picked up John's phone and 2 blankets, the blankets that I had Jen get out of the car.
What did you do with John's phone when you picked it up from the ground?
I put it in my pocket and gave it to a first responder when they came over, or I handed it off to a first responder.
And the blankets you picked up, were they in the ground area or on snow as well?
They were, I don't remember.
Okay. How long after you put the phone in your pocket, do you remember when you gave it to a first responder, how long you had it for?
I don't remember.
Do you remember the time that you picked up the phone?
I do not.
Have you seen video of that event?
Yes.
And does that video have times when you went over and picked up that phone?
Yes, but I don't remember. Somewhere around 6:12, 6:19.
And you don't know how long you kept it in your pocket until you gave it to a first responder?
I do not.
At some point, did you get in your car during that morning before you left and drove from the scene?
Yes.
Do you know if John's phone was still in your pocket when you first got into your car?
I don't know.
Was your car heated that morning? Did you keep
Yes.
it running?
Yes.
And was the heat
I
on
think
it?
I kept it running the whole time. I don't even think I shut it off.
I see. I want to now step forward to where you left us when you said that you had spoken to John's mother, Peggy. And did you decide what you were going to do next?
After I dropped Karen back off at 34 Fairview to get in the ambulance, I then made my way to Braintree. Barely. I was on the highway. I was the only one on the highway. I spun out a couple times.
Can you describe
right
what you mean by spun out?
Well, the driving was, no one else was on the road. The driving was horrible. So I spun out almost at the Braintree exit to get to their house. And then I got to the O'Keefe's house and I said, we are not taking the highway back to Brockton. We're going back roads, which is a much longer way, but there was no way I was putting us in the car and that treacherous.
When you went to the O'Keefe's house, you mean Peggy O'Keefe and John O'Keefe Sr.'s house?
Yes, John's parents.
That's different than Meadows Road.
Correct.
When you got to the home, did you go in?
Yes, for a second. They were ready and waiting for me. They wanted to get to the hospital.
When you say they, can you tell us who was waiting for you?
John's parents, Mr. and Mrs. O'Keefe, were waiting.
What happens next?
Mr. O'Keefe said something about a Dr. Rice and that they were trying to warm John up. We got into the car. Mr. O'Keefe got in my passenger seat. Mrs. O'Keefe got in the back seat. Mrs. O'Keefe's niece worked at Good Samaritan, so we were trying to get in touch with her to see if we were going to be allowed in because there was still COVID restrictions. John's brother was already on his way there. And Mr. O'Keefe at some point said, he's gone, Peg. And he slammed his hands on the dashboard. But they didn't actually know if he was gone yet. At one point, Karen called me from the ambulance. And on the phone, Mrs. O'Keefe said, Karen, what happened? And she said, I left him at a party. And Mrs. O'Keefe said, and you just left him? And Mr. O'Keefe said, all right, that's enough. She's been through enough. Then we hung up with her. I said, we're on our way to the hospital.
Let me ask you a question. When the defendant said that she left him, did she say whether she left him outside or inside?
No.
Was the follow-up question never asked?
No.
Okay. Was there any other conversation with the defendant at that point?
Not in the car, but when I got to the hospital, she called me multiple times from the hospital room.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
How long did it take for you and the O'Keefes to get to the hospital?
I would say maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
Share with us the mood in that car.
I think I was in shock, and I think they were in shock. There wasn't, other than talking to Mrs. O'Keefe's niece, trying to find out if we could go in for COVID reasons, there wasn't much talk.
When you finally get to the hospital, take us through your first steps. What happens?
We finally get to the hospital. We walked in. Paul, John's brother, was there. We went over to him, and then Susanna, Mrs. O'Keefe's niece, came out from her office and offered to take me to the bathroom to wash up because I had blood all over my hands. So I went into the bathroom, and I asked her afterwards if she could take me to the chapel so I could say a prayer. So she did. She took me to the chapel, and then when I came out, she took me into her office and explained to me that a Dr. Rice was going to come talk to the family and take them into an office and talk to the family, and then the family would be able to go see John.
Did you get a chance to see John?
I did.
Would you be willing to tell us a little bit about what you saw?
Objection.
I waited in the waiting area. I spoke to my mom. Phone calls were coming in because people had heard what happened. And Mrs. O'Keefe, the family went in to see Dr. Rice. I watched them go in. I watched them walk down a hallway. And then when they came back out, Mrs. O'Keefe told me he was gone.
Objection. Strike that statement, folks. It's not part of the record.
Without telling us what anybody said to you, please just share with us what you saw.
I went into the hospital room, and John was in a neck brace. At this point, there was a trail of blood going toward the gurney or the bed that he was on. This time, both eyes were filled with blood. They looked like raccoons. That's the only way to describe it. I thought he was going to look better seeing him in the hospital because he had been worked on, but he was not. There was much more blood.
Were there any other ways that John looked different in the hospital than when you first brushed the snow off his face in the front of Fairview?
When I brushed the snow off his face, his left eye was fine. It had an ice cube on it that I pulled off, but the right eye was out to here, like a golf ball. When I got to the hospital, both eyes were swollen with, it looked like blood. They looked purple.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
May I quickly approach sidebar?
Okay.
With the court's permission, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to show you a photograph.
Yeah.
You recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Is that how John looked?
Yes, he did.
I'd ask that the camera not film that, please. Thank you.
I'd like to mark this as an exhibit. I will not publish it. May I approach your Honor?
Yes.
They
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. After you last saw your friend John, what did you do?
After the hospital?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
After the hospital,
Yes.
I drove. Well, we went back into the corridor with the family. And Karen at one point called from the hospital asking me, she said her father was on his way and could I go over and greet him or bring him to the O'Keeffe's when he arrived. And she described him. Her father did arrive, so I went over and said, "Are you Mr. Reed?" or something of that nature. And I said, "Mr. O'Keeffe would like to speak to you." So Mr. Reed went over and spoke to Mr. O'Keeffe. And Paul and John's parents and I, we didn't know next steps. We were waiting to see if we could leave or if we have to give information. And eventually we were able to leave. So I drove Mr. O'Keeffe home and Paul drove Mrs. O'Keeffe home to John's house.
Before you left John, did you take a bracelet from him?
When Mrs. O'Keeffe and I went in to see John in the hospital, there was a bracelet that was on his right wrist. It was a blue, like rubber bracelet. And that bracelet was made when his sister passed away. And her husband, and he wore it all the time. Mrs. O'Keeffe still wears it to this day.
Did you drive the O'Keeffes back to their home?
I drove Mr. O'Keeffe back to John's house, and Paul drove Mrs. O'Keeffe back to John's house.
You went back to John's house on Meadow.
Yes.
When you arrived at Meadow with Mrs. O'Keeffe, did you go in?
I arrived with Mr. O'Keeffe, and no, I did not go in.
What did you do next?
I went home.
At some point after you went home, did you return to the O'Keeffe residence or Meadows?
Not that day. The next day I did.
Where did you go?
Where did I go?
Yes.
I went to go to see the family the next day.
And where were they?
They were at John's house at Meadows.
So they were then staying at John's house at Meadows?
Yes.
Did you go in and visit them?
Yes, I did.
Why did you do that?
Because my friend had just died, and I wanted to be with the family.
Were there other people that were coming and going?
Yes.
Describe the level of traffic of people coming and going to Meadows that next day.
There were people coming from all over. John's friends, people from Canton, people we went to high school with. There was people coming in and out, dropping off food.
When you were there the next day, how long did you stay for?
Several hours. Maybe like 2.5, 3 hours.
Did you ever see the defendant there?
I did not.
Now, you told us that you had only met Miss McCabe once before that night?
Yes.
And after that night, shortly after what happened, did you speak to Miss McCabe again?
Yes.
How often?
Very often. We wanted to know what happened to our friend, so she would call me.
I'm going to allow that. Not what you said. Next question, please.
Would you speak to her on the phone often?
Yes.
Regularly?
Yes.
And so things changed
Yes.
after that moment.
Yes.
Did you start to see her in person?
Yes.
Spend time with her?
Yes.
For somebody who was not your friend, why did you, at this point, form this close bond?
I think because we went through something horrific together. We bonded over it. Mrs. O'Keeffe at one point did say, you two need to sit.
Did you ever write down a list of things that had happened to try to remember?
Yes.
When you were spending time with Miss McCabe, did you become friendly?
Yes.
Friends?
Yes.
How close of friends did you become?
She, to this day, is a close friend of mine.
To this day?
Yes.
When you were at the scene, when you were trying to help John, there were police officers and first responders?
Yes.
Now, you're from that area?
Well, yes. I'm from Canton, but not that side of town.
And you are active in the community at all?
Yes.
Sports, children?
Yes. Yes.
Do you know a lot of people from Canton?
Yes.
Did you know any first responders?
Yes.
Who did you know that you saw that night as a first responder?
That morning,
Yes, I'm sorry, that morning.
Mike Lank is my friend's daughter's father. No, my daughter's friend's father. I'm sorry.
Your daughter's friend's father. And
Yes.
does he have children that are friends with your daughter?
Yes, his daughter is friends with my daughter.
How close are his daughter and your daughter?
There's a group of 5 or 6 of them that are best friends.
Are you on a first-name basis with Mr. Lank?
Yes,
When you saw him that morning, did you recognize him?
I did.
Did you speak to him?
I said, Mike, is that you? He said, yes. That was it.
Are you friends with Mr. Lank's wife?
I am.
How often had you been to their house with the children or on your own before that day, before that morning when you found John?
Well, often when the kids can't drive, so when they do sleepovers or whatever, you drop them off, pick them up.
Your children would sleep over each other's house?
Yes,
So you had a friendly relationship with Mr. Lank before you found John?
yes.
And do you continue to have a friendly relationship with him?
Did what?
Do you continue to have a friendly relationship with him?
Yes,
Did you go to his house the day after you found John?
I did.
Who were you with?
Well, Jen and I had gone to the O'Keefe's house together with, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 of her daughters and both of my kids. And then when we were leaving, my daughter said, can you drop me off at Mike Lank's daughter's house? So I dropped her off.
And did you do that? You dropped her off?
Yes, I did.
When you dropped her off at the Lank house, did you speak to anybody?
His wife came out and got into the back seat just to find out how I was and how the O'Keefes were and
How were you?
how were they?
How were you?
Oh, I was not well.
And did you have a long conversation with Mr. Lank's wife?
Yes,
Was Miss McCabe with you?
yes,
After you left the Lank house, you left your daughter at the house?
yes,
You remained in the car?
yes.
At some point, did you speak to Mr. Lank's wife again?
Yes,
Are you friendly with her?
yes.
Did you ever try to get information, inside information about this case?
No,
After this case began, did you ever come to court?
did I ever come to where?
To court.
Yes,
And what was the reason you came to court?
to support the O'Keefe family.
At some point, did you stop coming to court? And
I
don't
did.
Answer just yes or no.
Yes,
Okay. Were you aware or watching about any type of news or publication on this?
yes,
As you were watching and learning information, did you begin to contact people at the district attorney's office?
yes, I did.
Did that include victim witness advocates?
Yes,
Did it include law enforcement assigned to the case?
Objection.
The form of the question, I'm sustaining the objection.
Who did you contact?
specific names?
Yes.
Steve Nelson, my victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who was a state trooper, and at one point I contacted Michael Morrissey's office.
Do you remember at any time being interviewed by police officers or state police about this case?
At my house on January 29th.
So that same day you found John, you were interviewed?
Yes,
Do you remember who interviewed you?
I do not.
Do you remember your mental state at that time?
I was not well. It was in the evening at some point.
Were you interviewed at a later time by any other law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay, and where were you at that next interview?
I think I was at Jen's house. We were making a timeline together when 2 law enforcement showed up to question her. But I happened to be there, so they took us in separate rooms and questioned both of us.
Were you sober at that point?
Yes.
And what was your mental state then?
Still, we hadn't even had a funeral. So I was still, I couldn't believe what was happening.
And after John's passing, did you still continue to help out with the children?
Yes.
If the court's permission, I would like to play an exhibit that's already in evidence.
Okay.
It's Exhibit 4.
All right.
Before you start it, ma'am, I'm going to show you a video from the scene that night, okay? Ms. Gilman, is this sound? Thank you. Could we start at 6:09:50, please? Could you stop there, please? Ms. Roberts, do you see yourself in that video?
Yes.
And where were you in that video?
I'm over near the flagpole.
What were you doing in that video before you stood up?
I think I was picking up the phone and the blankets at that point.
You see the first responders getting there?
Yes.
Okay. Continue, please. Is that you with the fur on the hood?
Yes.
That's you in the middle of the street?
Yes, I'm to the right of the car.
Could you stop for one moment, please? Ma'am, you see the other two people in the middle of the screen right now? Do you know who they are?
That's Karen and Jen McCabe.
Do you see the proximity or the closeness between them?
Yes.
You are not close to Jen McCabe in this video.
No.
Is there a reason why?
I didn't really know her, and Karen was running around like you saw. I didn't want to be near her. I just found my friend.
Okay. Could you continue, please, to 6:15? You can let it run, please. Stop, please. Thank you. Ms. Roberts, is this when the first responders were moving John from where he was laying?
Yes.
Please continue. Could you continue to watch the area near the flagpole, please?
Oh.
Stop, please. That last 15 or 20 seconds of video, did you pay attention to that, Ms. Roberts?
Yes, that was the moment that I picked up the phone and blankets. Not before. I don't know what I was doing before when you asked me.
And that location where you picked up the phone and blankets, was that where John was lying?
Yes, it was.
And is that where you saw the ground that did not have snow?
Yes, it was.
At that point, had you put the cell phone in your pocket?
Yes.
If there's no objection with the court's permission, I'd like to watch a little more of the film, but if we can double speed it so we get an opportunity to view it, I want to get to another moment in it.
Okay. Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you.
Around 16, 17 would be fine, Ms. Gilman. Stop, please. The person in the blue jacket, do you know who that is on the right side of the screen?
That's Jen McCabe.
And do you, well, you can't see you now. Do you know where you are at this point?
I don't know where I am.
Continue, please. What are you doing, Ms. Roberts?
Cleaning off my car.
Please stop. Did you mention at some point you went back and the defendant, Ms. McCabe, were in a car?
They were in a police car at some point.
Did you do anything with them when they were in that car?
At one point, Karen asked us to say a prayer, to pray, so we said a prayer.
Was it before or after this moment on the video? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. If you could continue, please. Stop, please, just for a moment. Do you know where you are at this point, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay. If you can continue, please. Was that you walking by, Ms. Roberts?
Yes, it was.
Note the time is 6:21:22. Do you know where you walked?
No, I
Are
do
you
not.
behind this car, this dash cam view?
Say that again?
Are you behind the view of the dash cam?
I think it looks like I went over to the right of the vehicle.
Okay. Stop, please. This is, for the record, 6:23:08. At 6:23:08, are you still beside or behind the view of this car?
I believe so.
And do you know where Ms. McCabe is at this point,
No.
or the defendant?
No.
Please continue. Ms. Gilman, when it reaches 6:24:18, if you would stop again. At this time, 6:24:18, are you within view of this camera angle?
No,
Where do you think you are in relation to this camera angle at this point?
I'm still either to the right or behind the dash camera.
And do you see the defendant or Ms. McCabe in this view?
No,
And this is at 6:24:18. Could you continue to 6:26:25, Ms. Gilman? Did you notice the first person that came from the right and the second person that are not law enforcement?
that was myself, and I think that's Jen McCabe.
6:26:25. Continue, please. And do you know who that is on the right with the police officer?
That was Karen.
Do you know where the cell phone is at this point, Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone?
I don't know. I could have handed it to a first responder at this point, or it could still be in my pocket. I'm not sure.
Ms. Gilman, if you could next stop at 6:34:48. Was that you walking by in the street?
Yes.
Do you know who you're speaking with?
I don't know. Mr. Brennan, at this point, can we pause this and take our morning recess, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Pause, please. Thank you.
Folks, why don't we take 15, 20 minutes?
Ms. Roberts, we have about a minute and a half left. I want to watch the video until it reaches 6:35, please, Ms. Gilman. Do you know where you are at this point, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Could fast forward just a little bit more, please. Were you in the car?
I just got out of the car.
And do you remember if your car was warm?
Yes.
Stop, please. 6:34:36. Do you see yourself?
Yes, I just got in the driver's side of my car.
And at that point, do you remember whether you still had John's cell phone or you had given it to a first responder?
I don't remember.
Between you having it in your pocket and giving it to a first responder, did you put it or place it anywhere else?
No.
Did you take it out of your pocket and place it in the elements at all?
No.
So it was either in your pocket or in the hands of a first responder?
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Your Honor, may
Go
I?
ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Roberts. How are you?
Good morning.
Under questioning by Mr. Brennan, you talked about the number of times or a number of times that you have spoken to the DA's office or some member of the DA's office. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about that.
Sure.
how many times in total do you think you've spoken to a representative of the district attorney's office?
I don't have a number.
Would you say it's more than a dozen?
Yes,
Would you say it's more than 50?
maybe around there,
Okay.
maybe less.
And who are the folks, Ms. Roberts, that you have spoken to at the DA's office?
Steve Nelson,
Okay.
the victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who's a state police officer, and the DA, Michael Morrissey.
And what was the, I want to take those in order, and two of those are at the DA's office. One of those is not. Yuri Buchanan is not at the DA's office. He's actually a Massachusetts state police officer. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take those in order. How many times would you say you've spoken to Mr. Nelson? Just if you can give me a thumbnail.
I don't know, maybe 30, 40.
Okay. Have you received what you would consider to be updates on the progress of the case? From Mr.
I
Nelson?
would ask questions, and he would give me very broad answers.
Okay. Were your questions ever prompted by conversations that you had with your friend, Miss McCabe, Jen McCabe?
Sometimes Jen would say, could you ask Steve this, because I had a rapport with Steve.
Okay. Were those conversations by text message or phone calls or both?
I would usually text him.
Okay. What about the conversation with, or conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected district attorney? What were the circumstances under which you contacted Mr. Morrissey?
Well, during the course of this trial, the witnesses have been harassed,
That's not my question.
Objection.
but I'm answering your question.
Hold on. I'm going to sustain the objection. Next question.
Thank you. Were you phoning him? Were you meeting him? Were you texting him? That's my question. The circumstances of the communication itself.
I phoned the office asking for a meeting, had a meeting, and then he left a voicemail at some point and texted me and said, I just left you a voicemail.
Okay. Was that the extent of your conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected DA?
I had one other meeting with other witnesses
Okay.
and the DA.
And turning to Yuri Buchanan, what were the logistics? I'll use that word instead of circumstances. What were the logistics of you contacting Yuri Buchanan? Was it by phone? Was it in-person meetings, text messages, or all of the above? All of the above.
All of the above.
How many times would you say that you've spoken with Yuri Buchanan?
Spoken or communicated?
Sorry, good point. Communicated with.
Probably 20.
Okay. When was the last time? Actually, let me ask you a different question. Have you ever met with Mr. Brennan before your testimony today?
Yes.
What was the circumstance of that meeting?
Going over my testimony from the last trial
Okay.
and sort of just asking questions on what might come this time. Would I be cross-examined? I wasn't last time. Just sort of, all the things went through my testimony.
Okay. When was that meeting?
I don't know, in the last couple of weeks. I don't know.
Okay. Where was the meeting?
At the DA's office.
Who else was there?
Different times that I would meet with him, Steve Nelson would be there. One time, Brian Tully was there. Mr. Brennan's assistant.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Brennan's assistant.
Okay.
I don't know. Adam Lally and Laura McLaughlin.
Were those meetings, you said there was 2 meetings? Or did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, I think there were 2.
Okay. Were those close in time to one another? You mentioned 2 weeks ago. Were those both 2
I
weeks
said a
ago?
few weeks ago, but the other meeting was just before I was going to testify.
Meaning, what, yesterday, the day before?
Last week.
Was that also at the DA's office?
Yes, it was.
Were you shown anything at that meeting?
Was I shown anything?
Videos, testimony, transcripts?
No.
Reports?
No.
Nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We went over my testimony on the screen. And then I just talked about my testimony from the last time.
Okay. When you say you went over your testimony on screen, what do you mean?
We watched my testimony from the first trial on a TV screen.
Okay, so you were shown something. You were shown a video of your prior testimony.
Yes.
So I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please. You are.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Other than watching your testimony, were you shown anything else? Transcripts, videos, like videos that you may have seen today, dash cam videos, anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I was shown anything.
Okay. Did you discuss other parts of your prior testimony?
Yes.
Okay. What was discussed concerning your prior testimony and how it would impact how you testify today on direct examination?
Mr. Brennan had just asked me, can you just tell me what happened? So I told him the story verbally.
Okay. Anything come up about specific instances of how you were going to testify today
No,
or yesterday?
no.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit, Ms. Roberts, about the video that you were shown by Mr. Brennan. It's the dash cam video of Officer Seraph. I'm not sure if you know which officer that is.
No, I don't.
It's the one that you've been watching.
Okay.
That dash cam that shows your car in the foreground.
Yep.
I'd like to ask you a couple of quick questions about your memory of that incident and then perhaps show you the video depending upon what the answer is.
Sure.
Do you remember when the officer first arrived, you and Miss Reed specifically were at Mr. O'Keefe's body?
Yes.
Where was Miss McCabe at that moment?
She was there too, but she was waving down the first responders because it was dark out and he couldn't see us. He had a spotlight.
You and Miss Reed were both providing some level of CPR, some level of life-saving efforts.
Yes, as was Miss McCabe.
What was Miss McCabe doing?
When I was doing chest compressions and Karen was doing mouth-to-mouth, Jen was either on the phone with 911 or handing me baby blankets.
Okay.
At some point, she did take over doing chest compressions because I asked her to.
Okay. So Miss Reed was focused on Mr. O'Keefe's head, face area.
Correct.
You were focused on the chest.
Correct.
Ms. McCabe was, at some point at least, she had called 911 or dialed 911.
Yes.
When Ms. McCabe dialed 911 and was on the phone with 911, isn't it true that she was actually in a vehicle at the time?
That is not true.
She was outside?
She was outside.
That's your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard the 911 tape of that call?
Yes.
Okay. You're aware that that tape was also captured by an open line on Ms. Reed's phone?
Yes.
That open line that phone was dropped inside the cab of an SUV?
It was in the back seat, I believe.
Right. So in order for that for that open line to capture sort of the background of Ms. McCabe's side of the 911 call, Ms.
Yep.
McCabe would have had to have been either at or in the cab of the truck?
The back of the SUV was open. She was standing there.
Got it. Okay, so she was right next to or adjacent to the cab of the SUV.
She was in back of it with the back was up.
I see, that back hatch?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember Ms. Reed's statement, her initial statement to Officer Seraph when he got out of his patrol?
I do not.
Do you remember her saying something to the effect of, "My boyfriend, I left him, he never came home"?
I do not.
Okay. Have you listened with audio to that dash cam at the moment that Officer Seraph arrives at the scene and y'all flag him down?
We just watched it.
Right. Have you listened to it for the audio side? I mean, in other words, instead of focusing on the
no.
video.
No.
Okay. I'd like to ask you to do that with the court's permission. This is it's been previously marked as Exhibit 4. And with the court's permission, I'd like to play that from runtime about 3:50 and ask the witness to concentrate most readily at about 4:07, maybe
Okay.
10 seconds into it. I'm going to give a little run up and then ask you to listen very
Okay.
closely to the audio.
Yep.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Okay, Evan. Stop. Do you recognize the video as being the same video that you saw and you looked at on direct examination?
Yes.
Okay. In just a quick second, the door to the car, you're going to hear it open. I'd like to ask you to pay special attention to the audio portion and Miss Reed's voice,
Okay.
if you can hear it. Go ahead. Stop. Did you hear that last statement?
No.
Did you hear a woman's voice kind of faint in the background?
I heard a voice, but I didn't make out what she was saying.
Okay. Did it sound like she said, "My boyfriend, I dropped him off and he never came home"?
Objection.
Could you hear that, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay.
Next question.
That's all I have for the video. We can take that down. You talked about, on direct examination, some of the injuries that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered, both what you observed at the scene and then what you observed later at the hospital.
Yep.
And you noted those injuries, correct?
Say it again?
You noted those injuries. Those were
Yes.
You made note of those,
Yes.
or at least some of them. You said that you saw a hematoma of some sort over his right eye. Is that right?
Correct.
And there was some significant swelling to his right eye
Correct.
at the scene.
Correct.
Did you also notice a laceration just above his right eye, just under the eyebrow?
I saw it at the hospital, but I don't know if at the scene I saw it.
Fair enough. At some point, you saw that laceration to his right eye?
Yes, I did.
Did you also see a laceration to the left side of his nose, a smaller laceration to the left side of his nose?
I don't recall. I know there was blood coming from here, but I don't know if it was coming from inside his nose or from a laceration. I don't know.
When you said here, you're pointing to the left side of your nostril.
Yes.
And basically just above the nostril, correct?
Yes, right around the nostril, there was blood coming this way.
Okay, draining to the left side of his cheek.
Yes,
Okay. You also saw, once you got to the hospital, that his left eye had swollen as well.
now both eyes were swollen and filled with what looked like blood.
And his left eye was black as well as his right eye.
Correct.
Okay. You also indicated that you saw, well, actually, I don't know if you did or not, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. I apologize. Did you see his right arm?
I did.
Did it appear to you that he had some abrasions or lacerations, parallel abrasions and lacerations and punctures on his right arm?
They were scratches.
Scratches. Ms. Roberts, you've previously testified that when you arrived, let me take you back instead of jumping right into it. After you met up with Ms. Reed at Jen McCabe's house that morning, so this is just after 5 o'clock or so, the three of you arrived back at One Meadows, correct?
Correct.
Is that right? I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay. You're trailing the Lexus SUV, correct?
Correct.
The Lexus pulls in to the driveway, and you pull in directly behind Miss Reed, and Jennifer McCabe is driving.
Correct.
You're driving your SUV, correct?
Correct.
You've previously testified that when you arrived at One Meadows at that moment, that once that SUV, the Lexus SUV, had pulled in and you pulled in behind the Lexus, you got out of the Lexus, sorry, you got out of your SUV, they got out of the Lexus, and that's a point at which Karen showed you the back of her taillight and said something to the effect of, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you think I hit him? Do you recall that?
I recall saying I didn't know if it was when we were coming or going, but she did point out the taillight.
Okay. When you previously testified under oath, your quote was, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her.
Mr. Jackson.
Give page and line numbers when
Yes.
offering statements.
Sure. It's the SGJ, the grand jury, page 58, lines 14 through 19 for court and counsel.
Thank you.
Did you testify, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her, period. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the car saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? Question mark. End quote. Is that how you testified?
May I see it?
Sure. I apologize, I've already got it up here.
Does it have a date on it, Mr. Jackson?
It does. (4/26/22). May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have the pages after this?
I'm sure I do.
Because in the pages after this, I say,
My question, Ms. Roberts, is that a quote that I just said, is that accurate? Do you see it in the,
yes, it is.
okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach
Yes.
one more time?
Thank you.
Just for reference, I'm going to show you both pages. That's the page I asked you to look at, and then the following page as well. Please take your time.
Okay.
May I?
What I'm looking for is still not here, because I did say I wasn't sure if it was
Yes.
before or after.
Ms. Roberts, you do have to wait for questions.
When you gave this testimony, you were in front of a grand jury, correct?
I'm not sure which one that is.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury on April 26th, 2022?
Yes,
Okay, about 2 years ago.
yes,
Sorry, 3 years ago. You were under oath at the time. Is that right?
yes,
Things were fresher in your mind at that time than they are now, 3.5 years later, I'm guessing, correct?
yes,
Okay. You were asked the question to describe the circumstance when you arrived at One Meadows. Is that right?
yes,
And the answer that you gave was, quote, we pulled into it's a driveway, there's 2 cars, and then 2 cars, then a single, so John's car is there. Karen pulls in, and I pull in behind her. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the back of the car, saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? That was your testimony at the time, correct?
yes.
And just to be clear, I'd like to take a look at a quick video that you may or may not have seen before. We'll find out. Your Honor, I'd like to have this. Actually, this has already been previously marked as Exhibit 12C, as in Charlie,
Okay,
and it's a short clip. So I'll play the entire clip with the court's permission.
okay.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that video. Can you pause? Do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yeah, that's when we arrived at John's house.
Okay. And who's the person with the plaid red pants?
That is Jen.
And who's the person that's just rounding the back of the car in front?
That is Karen.
What is the car in front?
That's Karen's SUV.
That's the Lexus SUV.
Yes, it is.
Behind that Lexus SUV, Ms. Roberts, is there another car?
That's my car.
And who's getting out of that car?
I am.
Okay. And this is the point that you were describing in your, at least in the grand jury testimony at that time.
Yes.
This is the time that you're describing.
That I thought it was when we walked in.
This is the time that you were describing, right? When you arrive at the scene.
Yes.
Or, sorry, arrive at One Meadows.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play this through. Okay, you can stop it. And you can bring the lights up. You saw the interaction between all 3 of you and the vehicles, correct?
Yeah.
At any point, did anybody stop and take a look at the tail light or the rear end of the car?
Not when we were entering the house like I thought, but when we came out.
Okay. And there's no video of that?
I'm sorry?
There's no video of that?
No, I don't believe so.
Right. So the video that does exist describes nearly exactly the time that you testified that y'all stopped at the back of the taillight and Karen said, look, my taillight's broken. Oh my God, do you think I hit him?
Correct.
Okay. And that obviously was incorrect.
It was incorrect.
So your memory was faulty about that incident, that part of that incident at least.
It happened on the way out of the house.
So your memory was faulty about that part of the incident that you testified to at the grand jury.
Yes.
Okay. You were interviewed on January 29th. You've already testified to that, correct? By
Yes.
Troopers Dunn and my memory's failing me now.
There were 2. I don't know who they were.
Okay. I'm sure it's in my notes somewhere. 2 individuals that interviewed you on January 29th, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, things were very, very fresh in your mind at that point.
Yes, but I believe I was in shock. So,
The incident had just happened.
yes.
Okay. And you were asked to recount certain of the specifics about the incident that you had just experienced, not days or weeks, but just hours before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you did your best, I'm sure, Ms. Roberts, to be as full-throated as possible, to provide them with as much detailed information as you could, and to be as honest as you could.
Yes.
I mean, you weren't going to lie to these police officers, right?
No.
In your very first conversation with those two troopers on January 29th, you didn't mention anything about a taillight or a cracked taillight, or
No,
even
I did
having
not.
seen a cracked taillight, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I
You
didn't
then-
want to accuse anybody of anything.
You were then interviewed on February 1st, 2022, a few days later, correct?
I don't know.
Does that
I
sound
don't know
right?
the exact date. I was interviewed again, but I don't know the exact date.
Okay. During your interview, let me withdraw that and ask a different question. On February 1st, or whatever day it was, the subsequent time that you were interviewed just a few days later, you did then, for the first time, describe the taillight that you saw, correct?
I don't know.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at a report?
Yes, please.
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm handing you a two-page report, Ms. Roberts. I put a little dot on the second page just to direct your attention to the discussion related to the taillight, if you want to take a look at that.
Okay.
Okay. May I?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that you were interviewed on February 1st, 2022 by a trooper by the name of Connor Keefe and a trooper by the name of Kathleen Prince?
Yes. Did Connor Keefe write that report?
I'm sorry?
Did Connor Keefe write that report?
Trooper Kathleen Prince wrote the report.
Okay.
Does that matter? No?
Nope.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection that you did discuss the taillight at that time?
Yes.
And did you tell Trooper Prince and Trooper Keefe that you noticed the back right taillight in the middle, quote, in the middle, your words, was broken and a piece of the metal encasement was pushed forward?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't say that the taillight was completely shattered, correct?
Correct.
You didn't say that the entire lens was missing, correct?
Correct.
You said it was broken in the middle. Is that
Yes.
right? And then you described today that a square piece was missing.
Yes. That's the piece I was referring to in the
Okay.
middle.
Just in the middle of the taillight, though. That was how you described it.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to shift gears for a quick second and talk about a March 7th, 2023 text message with victim witness advocate Steve Nelson. Do you remember communicating? You don't have to know the exact date, but if you do, fine. Do you remember communicating in March of 2023 with victim witness advocate Steve Nelson about the Ring camera at One Meadows?
I don't know the exact date, but yes.
Okay. Is it true that you contacted him to inform him that the O'Keefes needed to replace or wanted to replace the driveway ring camera, that same ring camera that we just literally saw through that perspective
Yes.
of you arriving?
Yes.
Did Mr. Nelson indicate that he believed that would be fine to replace that ring camera if the O'Keefes wished to do that?
I don't remember if he said it would be fine, but at some point they were told they could replace it. It had broken. It wasn't working.
Did he indicate that he would check with DDA Adam Lally and then get back to you?
I don't know.
At some point, you were informed that the O'Keefes had the green light or the go-ahead to replace that ring camera at One Meadows. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then ultimately, you then relayed that to the O'Keefes that they had the green light. You've talked to somebody at the DA's office, and they said, yeah, go ahead and replace the camera, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever receive any kind of response from the DA's office either before or after you relayed this information to the O'Keefes to say, wait, hold on, we need to do a reconstruction, we need to make sure that the camera is in the exact same spot that it was at the time of the incident?
No.
Any communication like that?
No.
So the communication that you got was, yep, go ahead and replace it, it's no big deal.
Correct.
Okay. And ultimately, you learned that the O'Keefes did, in fact, replace that ring camera.
Correct.
You have already described your relationship, at least in part, with Canton Police Officer Sergeant Michael Lank, correct?
Yes.
He is friends with you?
His daughter is friends with my daughter.
You're friendly with the family?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that he's also friends with the Albert family?
No. Well, no.
Were you aware that Michael Lank grew up with Chris Albert?
I was not.
Have you ever been in a social setting with both the Lanks and the Alberts?
No.
You're aware, obviously, you were at the scene. He was the first officer to respond to the crime scene at 34 Fairview on January 29th after Officer Seraph and after Mulaney arrived. Right? Then it was Sergeant Lank.
I don't know which order. I did see Sergeant Lank there, yes.
Was he the, excuse me, sorry. I was just reminded, you indicated that you don't remember the date of that text communication between yourself and Mr. Nelson.
No, I don't remember the date.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at a text message between the two of you about the subject of the ring camera?
Sure.
Okay.
Do I need to know the date?
May I approach? I need to know the date.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thanks.
Is it March 7th, 2023?
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Don. You indicated that you did recognize Sergeant Lank at the scene.
Yes, I did.
You had a conversation with him.
No. I said, Mike, is that you? He said yes, and that was it.
All right. Following that, the next day, you did go to his house. You've already described that.
I did.
You indicated that you went to his house to drop off your daughter for a play date. Is that right?
Yes.
But you
She's
also
13.
indicated that you took Jennifer McCabe with you.
Yes, because I drove Jen McCabe to the O'Keefe's house, so she was leaving to go home with me. So I was going to drop her off.
Okay, so your memory is you took Miss McCabe from where over to the Lanks house?
I think she was at home.
So you picked her up
Yes.
at her house
Yes.
with anybody else?
With my daughter, my son. I picked up her and either one or two of her daughters. I don't remember.
And then you drove over to the Lanks house, is that right?
No, I drove to the O'Keefe's house.
First.
Yes.
And what did you do with the O'Keefe's
Then
house?
left a couple of kids, and my daughter wanted to go to the Lanks house, so I drove my daughter to the Lanks house before driving home.
And Jen's child was with you on the way from Jen's house over to the O'Keefe's house?
Yes, one or two daughters. I don't know.
dropped the 1 or 2 kids off at the O'Keefe's, is that right?
As well as my son.
As well as your son. Then you went to drop off your daughter for the play date.
Well, she was 13, so it wasn't a play date.
Whatever, I don't know what you call it.
I know.
I don't have a 13-year-old. What a date, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
So she went over to her friend's house, yes.
Okay. But you took Jennifer McCabe with you
Yes, because I was driving her home.
back to her house without her kids?
Yes, she was going home.
Were you going to go back to the O'Keefe's and pick up her kids and then take all of them home?
I didn't have a plan. I mean, Patrick,
Okay.
nephew, is my son's best friend.
Got it.
So he wanted to be with him.
Okay. Did you, I think you just answered this, but I want to make sure I'm clear about it. You didn't take separate cars. You all went in the same car. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Did anybody stop by or go by 34 Fairview during that roundabout?
No,
Nobody stopped off at 34 Fairview either on the way or on the way back?
no. I don't believe so. That wouldn't be the route in which to get to my house.
Right, exactly. You indicated that you stayed, even though you were dropping off your daughter, y'all stayed, you and Miss McCabe stayed at Sergeant Lank's house for some 45 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And Sergeant Lank's wife, you indicated, was in the back seat of your car?
Yes.
Did y'all ever go inside the house?
Jen went in to go to the bathroom.
Was Sergeant Lank there?
I don't know. I didn't go in.
You didn't have any communications with Sergeant Lank?
I'm sorry?
You didn't have any communications with Sergeant Lank himself, Mike Lank, on that trip?
No, I did not.
But you don't know whether or not Jen did?
I don't know whether or not Jen did. She went in the house to go to the bathroom.
Okay. You've indicated that there have been occurrences in which Jennifer McCabe has asked you to contact the DA's office on her behalf to ask a question here or there, get some information, correct?
To Steve Nelson, yes.
Okay. How many times, just a number of times, volume, would you say that Ms. McCabe has asked you to reach out to the DA's office in one particular or another on her behalf?
I don't think very many.
What does that mean? Of the 50 times that you've had
No,
communications?
maybe like 4, not many, to my knowledge.
When you would, on these 4 occasions or 4 or so occasions, when you would reach out to the DA's office, gather information, whatever that information may be, would you then report that information back to Ms. McCabe?
Yes.
You obviously understand the importance of providing statements to law enforcement that are free of influence of other people, other witnesses. Is that right?
Say it again?
You understand the importance of providing information to law enforcement as a witness to law enforcement free of influence from other people.
Yeah.
In other words, you want to be as accurate and as independent as possible.
Yes.
And that's because if your statement is somehow, or if your communications with law enforcement are somehow influenced by others, it might call into question the credibility of the person providing the statement.
Objection.
Can you answer that question, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay, next question.
Sure. A statement that's been colored by influence from someone else would lack credibility, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
I want to talk about the statements in the prior testimony that you have provided in this case, Ms. Roberts. There's been several of them. The first time you told your story to law enforcement was on January 29th. We've already established that, correct?
Say that again?
It was on January 29th, the first time you relayed your story to law enforcement.
Yes.
And that was to Trooper Dunn and Trooper DeChico. That's the name I couldn't remember.
I don't remember.
But you do remember Trooper Dunn.
I remember 2 troopers. I don't know their name.
Okay. Where did that interview take place?
In my dining room.
And who was with you when you gave that interview, if anybody?
My husband was home. I think my daughter was home at that point. My husband was home. I don't know if the kids were home.
Nobody else from outside the family?
No.
Okay. Who contacted you about doing that interview? How did they know to come to you at your home?
I don't remember. They may have just shown up. I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember what time the interview was?
Maybe around dinner time, maybe around 5, 6.
Was it recorded?
I'm sorry?
Was it recorded in any way? Tape
I don't-
recorder running?
I don't think so.
The troopers were taking notes, obviously.
I believe so.
During your conversation with, and I'm jumping around a bit, so I apologize. During your conversation or conversations with Mr. Brennan and the DA's members of the DA's office in preparation for your testimony, were any of those interviews recorded?
No.
Was anybody taking notes?
No.
No, none of the DAs were actually taking notes. The ADAs.
I didn't look around the table to see if anyone was taking notes, but I didn't see them taking notes.
No pads and pens on the table.
There was a lot of stuff on the table, but I didn't see anybody taking notes.
Okay. You received a phone call just before that interview started at 5:25 p.m., correct?
Around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Is this the night of the 29th, you mean?
This is the night of, I'm jumping back to the night of the 29th.
Yeah, I'm not following you very well.
That's okay. On the 29th,
Yeah.
when you were interviewed around 5:25 p.m., maybe just a little bit before that,
Yeah.
you received a phone call just before that, correct?
I do not know.
Isn't it true that Jen McCabe called you and spoke to you just before that?
I spoke to Jen McCabe the entire day.
Okay. Including just before that interview.
I don't know.
Did you tell Jen McCabe that you were about to be interviewed?
No.
Did you tell her at some point did you text her and tell her that the officers had arrived?
I don't think so.
Did she text you back and say, call me right after?
I don't know.
Okay. During the course of that interview, when the incident was still pretty fresh in your mind, you indicated that at about 5 a.m. you got a call from Karen Reed indicating that John never came home and that she was worried, correct?
Correct.
You also indicated that she was worried that John may be walking and may have gotten hit by a plow. You relayed that to the officers.
Yes.
You indicated that you met up with Karen Reed and Jennifer McCabe at Jennifer McCabe's house, and Karen was hysterical and worried that something had happened to John.
Yes.
You also indicated that once you were at 34 Fairview, once you all had made your way over to 34 Fairview, Karen saw John and ran to him, although you and Jennifer didn't see him initially, correct?
That's correct.
You said that Karen was repeating the phrase, is he dead, over and over. Is that right?
That is correct.
You also indicated that she said that if anything happened to John, she'd kill herself, correct?
That's what she said to me.
Object.
So the objection sustained.
Did you indicate at any time, I'm sorry, let me ask it a different way. Did either of the troopers indicate to you after your initial interview that if there was anything further that you could recall that would be useful, please provide it? Please give it to at that time.
I don't know.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to look at that January 29th report?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So on the second page of that report, January 29th, and there, I put a little mark by paragraph 5. If you could take a look at that.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
During this interview with Trooper Dunn and Trooper DeChico, they indicated after you gave your statement that if you wish to provide anything additional, now's the time to do it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you informed that you were limited on time in that interview? Meaning, we got to get this done, we're leaving, we're out of time.
No.
They didn't cut you off, correct?
No,
They didn't tell you that they had a limited amount of information that they wanted and then they were just going to leave, correct?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
As a matter of fact, they told you that anything you wanted to provide to them, provide it. Give them as much detail as you could, correct?
I don't recall.
You just read the last statement that these troopers indicated, correct? If there's anything further she could recall that would be useful, please provide that information.
Object.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Having looked at the report,
No. Bring it to her and show it to her again.
she's just, it's the same thing that I just showed her. Having looked at the report, does that refresh your recollection about what Trooper Dunn and DeChico told you at the end of the interview?
I don't recall. It's not refreshing. I'm not remembering it. Even reading it, I'm not remembering it.
I see. Okay, fair enough. So as you sit here, the details about what you told or what those two officers told you are not fresh in your mind, and nothing's refreshing your recollection about that.
Right.
Okay, but you do remember the basics of what I just described in that conversation with those two troopers.
I mean, they asked me what happened. I told them, but I was also in shock.
You never said during the course of that interview that my client called you at 5 o'clock in the morning just hours earlier and said he's dead and then hung up, correct?
No, I don't believe I said it at that point. I did not remember that until a couple of days later.
I see. And in fact, when you were asked about that particular statement, when you asked about that particular series of events, that never came to your mind.
No.
That literally the first words out of Karen Reed's mouth, according to you now, is he's dead and then hung up.
Correct.
When you heard that, you didn't take that to mean that she killed him.
No.
Of course not. She was panicked, correct?
Yes.
You did add that, one other thing that you didn't add in your initial statement to Trooper Dunn and Trooper DeChico is anything about the taillight either, correct?
Not.
Okay. And you also didn't say anything about any sort of a Google search or the praying that you talked about in the back of the patrol car, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember.
The second time you were interviewed, that was the February 1st interview. That was with Kathleen Prince and Connor Keefe, correct? And you just looked at that report, at least part of that report. Is that right?
Say it again?
Connor Keefe and Kathleen Prince, that was on February 1st, 3 days after your initial statement, correct?
I don't remember the date, but I remember meeting with them.
Okay. I want to make sure I get the dates down, so I'm sorry to belabor this, but... May I approach?
Yes.
Would it refresh your recollection if you were looking at the report of that interview?
It might.
Okay. First paragraph.
Thanks. Am I reading the whole thing or just the part where you dotted?
Just if it refreshes your recollection
Oh.
of the date.
Oh, for the date, yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
What date was it that you met with me?
February 1st.
That second interview was conducted at 12 Country Lane, correct?
Yes.
And who again lives at 12 Country Lane?
Jennifer McCabe.
So the second time you told your memory, your story to law enforcement, you were literally sitting in Jennifer McCabe's house.
Yes.
And you had met with Jennifer McCabe before your interview, correct?
Yes. We were putting a timeline together.
So you two were actually prepping, if that's a valid term, prepping for your interview, putting a timeline together, correct?
We were putting a timeline together at the request of Mrs. O'Keefe.
And Jennifer McCabe, was helping you with the timeline, and you were helping her with the timeline.
Yes, we were putting together the events of what had happened.
So she was helping you, and you were helping her, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So both of you were assisting in each other's memories, correct?
Yes.
I remember this, and you remember this, and you know, okay, now I remember this, correct?
Yep.
Obviously, that would help influence your memory, going
Yes.
over the event with someone else, correct?
Yep.
So what's on that timeline, you would agree, is not completely independent, your memory. It's a combination of your memory and Jennifer McCabe's memory. Isn't that right?
Yes.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the two of you drew out some sort of a timeline for you to follow during the course of that interview. Is that right?
For me to follow what?
During the course of that February 1st interview, as you were interviewed in Ms. McCabe's house. I mean, that was the purpose of the timeline, to help you with that interview?
No, that wasn't the purpose of the timeline.
You used it for that purpose, though, obviously.
We did not. I was at Jen's house making a timeline, and the two officers showed up to interview her. I just happened to be there.
Right. And when they interviewed you, did you have that timeline in front of you? That's my question.
No, I did not.
Okay. But you had just created it along with Jennifer McCabe.
Some of it.
Okay. And then it was after that that this timeline was coordinated between the two of you, that you actually told your second story to Trooper Prince. And when I say second story, I mean the second time you were interviewed on February 1st as opposed to January 29th. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever become aware of text messages that Jennifer McCabe was sending to others in a group chat talking about you in that interview?
No.
You were never told or became aware that she sent text messages to a group as she listened in on your interview?
No. I don't think she could listen in. She wasn't anywhere near me.
You weren't aware that or are you aware as you sit here that she sent a text message that said she's telling them everything, all the stuff?
Sustained.
Have you ever been provided a text message or told about a text message that perhaps Jennifer McCabe was sending to a group?
No.
Listening to your suggesting that she was listening to your interview?
No.
The third time you told your story was later that night in a telephonic interview. Is that right? With Trooper Proctor?
I requested to speak to Trooper Proctor because I had remembered the very first time I spoke with Karen that morning, and I wanted to make sure it was recorded.
Okay. That wasn't my question. My question was, did you have another telephonic conversation with Trooper Proctor, yes or no?
You said that night, but it wasn't that night.
When was it?
I think it was earlier that day.
Okay. But it was after the interview with Trooper Prince.
I don't think so.
Think it was beforehand?
I think it was beforehand.
You were still with Jennifer McCabe when that call took place, correct?
I was in her house. I was not with her. I stepped away to speak to him by myself.
In her home at 12 Country Lane.
Correct.
Who else was with you other than other than Jennifer McCabe in the house?
Her sister was there writing down the timeline for
Who's
us.
that?
Her sister, Denise.
Denise? So she was scribing the timeline as you and Jennifer McCabe were creating
She
it?
was writing it down as we were remembering things.
Right. And the three of you were doing this together, sort of communally.
Yes.
She would say something, then you would say something, then it would spark something that she would say, and back and forth, correct?
Yes.
How is it that Trooper Proctor got a hold of you? Did you call him or did he call you?
I think he was on the phone with Jen, and I asked to speak to him.
So Trooper Proctor got a hold of you through talking to Jen McCabe.
Well, I asked to speak to him, but yes.
Right. Was that interview recorded, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
The fourth time you met with police was February 2nd, the very next day, at about 12:08 p.m. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Do you remember signing a consent form for your phone?
Yes.
Was that the next day after this interview with Trooper Prince and Trooper
I don't know
Keith?
what day it was. It was right after Karen was arraigned for the first time. Jen and I met with them and both handed our phones over willingly.
So you just answered my question. So when you met with police, whatever the date was, it was a few days later, you met with police. You had a fourth time, you were still in the presence of Jennifer McCabe when you met with police.
Yes.
And handed your phone over, is that right?
Yes.
And she handed her phone over, is that right?
Yes.
And the two of you were together when you signed your consent forms, is that right?
Yes.
The fifth time you told your story was in front of a grand jury, is that right?
I don't know.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury?
I do.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Before you testified at that grand jury, just physically, you were brought into an anteroom where you waited to be called by ADA Adam Lowry, correct?
Yes.
Who was in that anteroom with you just before you gave your testimony?
My husband and Jen and Matt McCabe.
So Jennifer McCabe was with you yet again just before you gave
Yep.
official testimony under oath concerning this case and concerning the incident.
Correct.
Ms. Roberts, when was the last time you've spoken to Jennifer McCabe before you testified in this trial?
In this morning.
Did you discuss your testimony?
No.
So you and Ms. McCabe, who became friends
Correct.
because of this incident,
Correct.
talked as recently as this morning before your testimony.
Correct.
And your testimony now is that you did not discuss anything about what you're doing here
No.
or what you're going
I
to
did
testify
not. She
to.
called to wish me good luck today.
When did you talk to her the last time before this morning?
I don't know, maybe a couple of days ago? I don't remember.
Within days of you taking the stand yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever... May I have this one?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you, to take a look at, actually, let me ask it a different way. Did you say that you did or did not recall texting with Jen McCabe during the course of that January 29th interview with state police? Do you recall that or no?
No.
Okay.
During the interview, I didn't text anybody.
Okay. Are you saying you didn't text anybody or you don't recall?
I don't recall. I don't think I had I wouldn't be texting somebody if I was being interviewed by the state police.
Right. Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at a report of text messages?
Sure.
May I approach you on?
Yes.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Take a look. There's two tabs. Take a look at the tabs and the data across the two tabs, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in no rush. Okay. May I?
Yes.
Take this back. Well, sports commission, Mr. Brennan,
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch if you'd like. And I forgot to tell you, anytime we're at sidebar, please feel free to stand up and stretch, okay?
that was quicker than we thought, Judge. May I
Okay.
proceed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you take a look at this document?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that there were two text messages at around the time of your interview with those two troopers?
No.
Do you recall, as you sit here, texting Ms. McCabe that the state troopers were arriving or they're just getting there?
No.
Do you recall Ms. McCabe texting you anything back about calling me after?
No.
Okay. Did you, in fact, different question, did you, in fact, call Ms. McCabe right after the interview and talk to her?
I don't know.
Have you ever testified that at the scene, Miss Reed was seated in the back of a patrol car along with Jennifer McCabe, and you were standing just outside the car, and there was an interaction among the three?
Yes.
Have you ever testified, or have you ever stated in any particular, that during that interaction, Karen asked the three of you to pray?
Yes.
Have you ever said or testified that during that interaction where you're seated, where they are seated in the back of the patrol car and Ms. Reed asked you to pray, that Ms. Reed said to Jennifer McCabe, Google hypothermia?
No.
You've never said that.
I've never said that.
You testified at the grand jury on April 26th. Is that right? April 26th, 2022?
I do not know.
Right? Does that sound right? April 26th, 2022?
I have no idea.
Late April 2022, does that sound right?
I don't know. It was 2022.
You testified under oath, correct?
Yes.
Swore the same oath that you swore here.
Yes.
Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but penalty of perjury. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I needed. Is it your testimony that you have never said that Karen told Jen to Google hypothermia, or that you don't recall saying that?
I don't recall saying that.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at portion of your grand jury testimony from that day?
It might.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. And if you could read on to page 83 as well.
Yep. I testified. I didn't hear it, but I was told that she was asked to Google it.
You testified under oath at the grand jury that at some point Karen was in back of the police cruiser, correct?
Yep.
Objection.
No, I'll allow that question.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told the grand jury?
Yes.
And isn't it true that at some point during the course of your testimony under oath, you said that Karen was in the back of the police cruiser?
Yes.
And then you went on to describe that Karen and Jen and I were standing outside, and she made us all start holding hands and starting to pray.
Yes.
I mean, the she being Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
And at this point, they had lifted John up and taken him onto the gurney, correct? That's
I don't
what you
know.
described.
I don't recall.
Okay. I'm going to do this again, just so we're clear. May I approach?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. Just the portion at the bottom of the page.
At the bottom?
At the bottom, last couple of paragraphs.
Okay. Yep. I say I think, so I'm not
I have a
positive.
question for you.
Okay.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Thank you. And you testified basically that you think, at least that's what you were telling the grand jurors, that you
Yep.
think that was the point at which they lifted John up
Yes.
and moved him into the ambulance, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
And then you were asked a question, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, correct?
Objection.
Do you recall that?
I did not hear the question about Google being asked.
That's not my question. May I ask? May I inquire?
Just repeat that question.
Sure. Isn't it true that you were next asked by Mr. Lally in front of the grand jury, quote, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, end quote. Do you remember being asked that question?
No.
May I approach? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to look at lines 16 through 18.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection? That was the question that you were asked?
Yes.
Okay. And in response to that question, you stated, quote, at one point she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long Google hypothermia. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
was very detailed. You'll agree that that's a very detailed and specific recount of an event. You recounted where you were, back of a cruiser, or they were in the back of a cruiser, correct?
Yep.
You recorded or reported the time. It was right around the time that you thought they were lifting John up and scooped him up onto the gurney, correct?
Yep. I thought it was about that time. I wasn't sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that answer. You were talking over each other.
That's my mistake.
What was your answer, Ms. Roberts?
I thought it was about the time they lifted him up, but I wasn't sure.
You were very detailed about who was there. It was you. It was Jen. It was my client, Karen
Yes.
Reed, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
You were so detailed that you talked about where you were standing next to the cruiser open door, correct?
Yes.
What the others were doing, holding hands and praying, is that right?
Yes.
And the actual words used. You were as detailed about all of that as the actual words used. She asked her to Google hypothermia and how long, and then you stopped, Google hypothermia, end quote, correct?
Correct.
You will agree, at least for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that. In
The
the
answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and I'm not a trick question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her, my client, ask anyone to Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet, that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement, was because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that, I'm going to let her answer.
Nobody told me to say it. I knew it happened at that time,
How did you
which
know
is
it
why I
happened?
said it.
How did you know it happened, Miss Roberts, if no one told you it happened?
Because we wrote a timeline. We already spoke about
So
that.
the timeline that Jennifer McCabe helped you with, that influenced your testimony in front of the grand jury, correct? Obviously.
I was telling what happened in the back of the
Miss Roberts,
cruiser.
The timeline
can answer.
you wrote,
So when you ask a question, let her answer, okay?
the timeline you wrote, with Jennifer McCabe's help, influenced your testimony to testify in front of the grand jurors to a statement that you never heard, correct?
Yes.
You were later asked about that statement in another investigation, by another investigator or set of investigators, correct?
I don't know.
Were you interviewed by a different law enforcement agency, a separate law enforcement agency from the Massachusetts State Police at any time?
Yes.
And you were told that to lie to those agents would be a crime, correct?
Yes.
Punishable by prison, correct?
I was not told that.
They asked you whether or not you heard Karen Reed ever say anything to Jennifer McCabe about Googling anything, correct?
I don't know.
Isn't it true that you told them what you've just now told us, which is, I did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google searches?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of that interview and that report?
Sure.
I know where it is. Can I approach?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at the entire document, just to familiarize yourself with it if you don't mind, including the front page. And don't answer anything about the document until I ask you a question, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, do you recognize that as being a report of an interview that you conducted?
I've never seen this before, but
Understood. You may never have seen it, but does it remind you that that's
Yes.
a report of a conversation you had with another law enforcement agency? I'm going to ask you to turn to page 7 of that report. And if you look, there's a small paragraph, about 2 paragraphs up from the bottom. I think I may have put a little blue dot by it, but I'm not sure. Please read that to yourself.
correct.
Done?
Yep.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts, does that refresh your recollection about what you told these investigators?
Yes.
And what you told them was you, quote, did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google
That is
search.
correct.
And you went on to say you saw McCabe on her phone.
I'll allow it.
You saw McCabe on her phone, but you did not hear Karen ask Jennifer to Google anything.
Correct.
So what you told the grand jurors was, in fact, false.
I misunderstood Mr. Lally's question.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. When you spoke to the grand jury about your memory, were you trying to fool them in any way?
No.
Were you trying to
Objection.
Watch the form of your questions.
were you trying to mislead them in any way?
Objection.
Sustain. Watch the form of your questions.
When you spoke to the grand jury, were you honest?
Yes.
When you were asked the question, what, if anything, did the defendant ask Ms. McCabe, did you begin your response by saying, at one point?
You can show her her response.
May I approach?
Yes.
Page 83, line 19 of the grand jury. Can I ask you to look at page 83, line 19? Just read it to yourself and the lines that follow. You done? When you were asked that question by Mr. Lally at the grand jury, did you ever say you specifically, personally heard that statement?
I'll allow that.
Did you
No,
ever
I
tell
did
the
not.
grand jury you actually heard that statement being made?
I did not.
And when you spoke to the people in that report that you looked at on page 7, did you ever tell them you specifically heard that statement being made?
No.
Were you consistent in both of those statements?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you say anything different as
No.
far as what you personally observed between those statements?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
And when you were asked about what the defendant may have said to Ms. McCabe or Mrs. McCabe, did you generalize your answer?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you begin your answer with at one point?
Yes.
When you chose the words at one point, what were you trying to convey to the grand jury?
I'll allow that.
I didn't know at what time it was done.
Was that a topic of conversation around the time you were brought to the grand jury?
Around the time what?
that you were brought to the grand jury to testify? This Google search.
Was it? I don't know.
Okay. Were you asked here in front of this jury whether or not you personally heard that statement?
Yes.
By me. Did I ask you that question?
No.
Did you personally hear that statement?
No.
After this happened, you discussed what had happened with people, didn't you?
I'm sorry, say it again?
After you found John lying in the snow, did you discuss what had happened, what you saw with other people?
Yes, of
Did
course.
anybody tell you that you couldn't discuss this trauma that you had been through?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
Say it again?
Did anybody tell you that you couldn't discuss what you had just seen?
No. Say it again? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
After you found John that morning, did anybody, civilian or law enforcement, ever tell you you weren't allowed to discuss what you had just went through?
No.
Did anybody ever tell you that you couldn't have support of other people?
No.
I'll allow that.
No.
Was this a traumatic event?
Yes.
Have you spoken to it to a number of people about it?
Yes.
Tell us why you would want to speak to somebody about what happened that morning.
I'm going to allow that.
I've spoken to many people, obviously, that we all grew up with. But Jen in particular, I do speak to her. I am friends with her. We went through a really traumatic experience together.
Did you ever confide in other people other than Jen McCabe about what you endured that morning?
Yes, many people.
Why?
Because it helps me get through, and it's whether John's family, friends, whoever, I've talked to a number of people about it.
You're friends with John's parents?
Parents?
John's parents, the O'Keefes.
Yes.
You still friends with them?
Yes.
Do you ever discuss what happened?
Yes.
You were asked by law enforcement if they could have your telephone?
Yes.
Was there a warrant?
Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently.
Did you feel like you had any obligation, legal obligation, to give your phone to law enforcement?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, they asked for my phone. I handed it over willingly.
Did you think you had to?
No, but there was no reason not to.
When they went through your phone, do you know whether they saw all of your phone calls that were on that phone?
Objection.
Do you know that?
I don't know. They cloned my phone, so I assume they saw everything.
Objection. Please.
I'm going to strike that answer. So the answer is I don't know.
What type of information did you have on your phone when you voluntarily gave it?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Text messages, phone calls, call logs, pictures.
You said that you stayed friendly and still are friendly with Peggy O'Keefe and John Sr.?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, at times, do you try to help them with things?
Daily.
Do you try to help them with the children?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, you were asked about contacting the district attorney's office about replacing a Ring camera.
Yes.
Whose Ring camera was that?
It was at One Meadows where Mr. and Mrs. O'Keefe, John's parents, are now living.
What motivated you to call the district attorney's office about the Ring camera?
Because we knew the Ring might be some sort of evidence that they didn't want to take the camera that was not working down without permission.
Do you have a Ring camera?
I do.
Do you know if there's a difference between the actual physical camera and the iCloud storage that keeps the actual video on it?
I don't know the difference.
Okay. Did you ever ask to replace any hard drives or storage, or were you asking to replace the camera itself?
Just the camera.
And that was in March 7, 2023?
I don't know when.
You were asked questions about what the defendant said that morning when you were trying to help Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
You were asked whether you heard any comments about her, from her, about dropping John off.
Say that one more time.
You were asked whether you heard any comments about her saying she dropped him off.
In the car on the way to the hospital.
Okay.
She said it to Mrs. O'Keefe.
When you were outside trying to help John, were you ever told where the defendant dropped John off?
No.
Were you ever told where he was left?
No.
Was it ever suggested that he went into 34 Fairview?
No.
Was it ever suggested that he went into any house whatsoever that morning?
No.
Were you ever asked to go into the house to look for him?
No.
When you were being interviewed by law enforcement, did you ever refuse to be interviewed?
No.
Were the interviews all the same or different?
They were all different. They were all different.
Were you ever asked to give a complete review and detail of everything that you knew?
I was just asked to tell me the story of what happened that morning.
And at some point when you were interviewed, you were asked about the phone calls that the defendant made to you that morning at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
When you received those phone calls, Jennifer McCabe was not on the line, was she?
No.
Was she a party to the calls?
No.
Did she influence your memory in any way about the words that the defendant spoke to you that morning?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
Do you have a clear memory of what the defendant said to you on the morning of January 29, 2022, at around 5 in the morning when she first called you?
Yes.
Is it your independent memory?
I'm saying.
Is it your independent memory?
Yes.
How well do you remember it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Tell us what you remember her saying to you.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
When she first called, she said, "John's dead, Kerry, Kerry," and hung up.
And she called you back.
She called back.
When she called back, was there any other party on the line other than you and her?
No.
What do you remember the second time that she called you?
Yes. She said, "John, I think he got hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. He would never not have come home. I wasn't supposed to stay in Canton, and Kaylee was here. He would never leave Kaylee by herself."
Did anybody ever ask you to lie
No.
or exaggerate?
No.
Would you?
Say that?
Would you?
No.
Sustained.
You were asked whether or not you told people on January 29th about the missing pieces to the defendant's taillight. And you began to say you didn't tell anybody that morning.
I didn't think it had anything to do with John. I didn't want to point fingers at anybody
Why not?
because I had no idea what had happened to him. I wasn't going to point fingers at his girlfriend.
Was it, in fact, broken with missing pieces that morning?
Yes.
You saw the ring video of you and Miss McCabe and the defendant going into John's house?
Yes.
Had you seen that video before today?
Yes.
Had you been shown it before in
Yes.
other proceedings?
Yes.
When you went into the house with Miss McCabe and the defendant, did you do anything before you went into the house, actually in the house?
When
Take any-
we took off our shoes
You took off your shoes?
Jen and I both took off our boots
Why did you take off your boots?
because you had to take off your shoes to go into John's house.
Well, you say you had to. Explain to us a little bit of the background on that.
John was a neat freak. You were not allowed to wear shoes in the house.
Had you ever worn shoes in his house?
No.
Had you ever seen anybody wear shoes in his house?
No.
You and
They
Miss
do
McCabe?
now. They do now.
You and Miss McCabe took your shoes off?
Yes.
Did the defendant take her shoes off?
She did not.
How do you remember that?
Because Jen and I were standing there for about a good 2 minutes trying to get our boots off, and she had already gone in the house.
Do you know why you were called that morning?
No.
Did you volunteer to be part of this
Yes.
after the call?
Yes.
You had said you thought that you looked at the taillight before you went into John's house?
Yes.
Do you remember actually seeing the tail light that morning?
I do.
Was it simply cracked?
No.
Do you know that the portion of the Ring video from when you came out of the house with the defendant, Miss McCabe, do you know that that portion is missing?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have you ever seen any Ring video depicting when the defendant was showing you her missing pieces of taillight that morning?
No.
Despite no video, are you certain that you saw it?
Say it again.
Are you certain that you looked at it with the defendant that morning in that driveway?
Objection.
Sustained.
I'd like to play clip 3, please.
Okay.
Objection. Reapproach.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Brennan.
When you first got to John and you were trying to save him that morning, do you have a distinct memory of it?
Yes.
Counsel had asked you if it was your story. Was this a story?
Say it again.
Was it a story that you told?
A story?
Yes.
It's what happened.
Do you wish it was just a story?
Objection.
Sustained.
There's no further questions.
Okay, so recross.
Just asked. Just a few minutes ago. Did you ever say that you actually heard that statement about that Google search? And you said no.
Correct.
The question that was posed to you by Mr. Lally was, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard?
Right.
Correct?
I misunderstood the question.
And you misunderstood that question?
Yes.
What
I
did you
did.
misunderstand about that question?
I didn't know it was that you heard, so I was explaining what happened in the back of the car.
I see. So you just ignored the part, literally, the part of the question where he said, what did you hear her say? That's what your
The word
testimony
was
is now?
heard, and I didn't hear it. I obviously got the question wrong because I did not hear anybody ask about a Google search.
Well, I know that's what you're saying now. I get that. But when you were asked, what, if anything, did she ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, your immediate answer was, at one point, she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long dash Google hypothermia, end quote. Correct?
Correct.
That was your answer,
Yes.
correct?
To a question I misunderstood.
And that was a false statement, wasn't it?
Technically.
Technically?
Yes.
Being a
Technically.
little bit pregnant, Ms. Roberts.
Okay, so remember, jurors, I said earlier, comments of counsel are not evidence and you're to disregard them. Ask a question.
Thank you, Your Honor. What do you mean technically?
Technically, I was under oath, and I did not hear Karen asked Jen to Google it.
And yet under oath,
But I knew it happened at that
and
time.
yet under oath you said you did.
Correct.
And that was a lie, correct?
Objection.
Was that a lie? Did you lie?
I did not intentionally.
But you did.
And
Not intentionally.
okay, that's the end of
Understood
this.
the question, Mr. Jackson.
All right. Is there any other question, or was that it?
I didn't know what you just said.
I said I misunderstood the question, Mr. Jackson.
That's what you're saying now, correct?
That's what happened.
All right.
Can I ask one more question?
Okay.
In that quote, you said, at one point she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long. Then you corrected yourself and finished with Google hypothermia. What did you mean by how long? What were you about to say?
I don't recall.
Had someone told you something about a phrase that started with how long?
I don't recall.
Hypothermia?
I don't recall.
Like, for instance, how long to die in cold?
I don't recall.
Okay. All right, Ms. McKay. I'm sorry, Ms. Roberts, you were upset.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Sorry. I'd like to play clip 3, please.
Your Honor, before this is played, is it possible to take a quick break so we can review this? There's a lot of clips. I'm not sure what this is. I'd like to see it before it's played.
All right. How long a clip is this?
Probably about 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
All right. Jurors, we're going to ask you to take a break, and we'll bring you back in, and we'll see a 10-second clip. All right, we'll give you a 5-minute break.
That's fine. Thank you, Your Honor.
Court, all rise, please.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
I'd like to play clip 3, please.
When my car was seized, there was a few small pieces of taillight missing that I had picked out at John's at 5:45 before we drove over to Fairview. I'm showing Jimmy Kerry, look what I just did to my light, and I'm worried that there's going to be some kind of electric short circuit. There's the bulb is showing, and some of the red plastic's missing. So I picked pieces out of the light housing that had kind of collapsed within the light and dropped them in John's driveway.
I'd like to have that marked as an exhibit, please.
Okay.
No objection.
Right. All right. Rather than calling your next witness,